spot right when you get here.
Turn right in.
You know. All right. So then there's one other option when it comes to international freshman requirements. And basically that'll be based on class rank. So it's kind of similar to the domestic undergrad. You know how you kind of have the 3 options. It's still kind of in a similar type setup between high school test scores and class rank. So if you'll hit the next slide for me. Thank you. We don't have to see your test scores for this, but you have to still have graduated within the top third of their class. And they have to have completed all their classes, all their requirements in order to graduate, even if their diploma hasn't been awarded yet. And it has to be a certified class rank. So, any questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory. So then we'll go to transfer students for international. Basically, again, it's very similar. You know, we don't have to see test scores, but we have to see all those transcripts. And we, again, same with undergrad, if you have less than 24, we still have to see high school. So just something to keep in mind. There is a website for wichita.edu/international transfer credit. That is a great resource for kind of looking at that. Also, specific countries will sometimes have specific requirements. Or we know that there's kind of specific things you need to look for if you're from that certain country. And that is broke down on their website. So students can literally go in and say, this is where I'm from. What is this process going to look like for me? And it's really helpful to kind of break down, especially if we know students have issues, or we know that it's going to take longer, anything like that. It really is just helpful for them to just go straight into it and see that. So international students have a great resource when it comes to the web and being able to say, you know, this is what I want to do, but this is where I'm from. How do I make this happen? So again, there's the breakdown on the GPA requirements. So this is kind of a little bit better breakdown. You can see the health professions. And so again, you can be admitted as, you know, general, international, but not meet those specific program or college requirements. So something that all transfer students have to keep in mind when they're applying for a specific program is just have that, you know, 2.0 or that 2.25 that they need to be aware of. You know, if they want to do a specific program like nursing, they got to know, they got to be prepared. So, any questions on transfers? Okay, we'll go to the transfer guideline, timeline.
You might just note that that GPA for dental hygiene is wrong.
Is it?
It's a 2.75.
Okay, so if you guys will note that on your slides, the dental hygiene is actually wrong. It is a 2.75 rather than a 2.5. And that should be broken down in a KB article that has this lined out. And so even if it's wrong on here, you should be able to find the correct one.
I don't think we
Correct?
have KB article.
Oh, apologies. Doesn't sound like maybe we have a KB on that yet.
Let me look.
Maybe something we'll look into. But again, even as a general, you know, blanket statement, remind the student to make sure if they are specific requirements for a program to check it out, at least on the GPA. But again, there's always that, what you can tell them is that even if you don't meet those specific ones, they just have a 2.0 or a 2.25, whatever it is, and it's below, they can still come. They just aren't going to be in that program just yet. So, I mean, it's not like, you know, end of the world type deal. I mean, they can still come. That's not what we're saying. We want them to come. We're just saying you're not quite there yet for that specific program. Okay. So for international undergrad and intensive English students, it normally takes about 7 to 10 business days to review an application. But it can always take longer if you haven't paid the fee, or if they're processing a lot of applications, or again, if we're waiting on transcripts, things like that. Once everything's been received, or your application has been received, I should say, and entered into the computer system, students are sent an automated email to say that their application has arrived, so that they know. And then depending on how many, you know, applications they're processing, and, you know, it could take a few days after your application has arrived on campus to get that email. But, all right. So let's move on to a knowledge-based search and see if we can find, I know we probably kind of already did this, but I want to make sure you guys are using the right keywords to make sure you're getting international freshman admission requirements, and then how long the process takes for those international applications.
Yeah, they just. Yeah.
Do you guys have laptops?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
What is it? Go back.
I mean, I sort of understand, like, when you guys are taking the institution students.
I'll figure it
It's, I'm gonna say this. Where was it? Which one was it?
It says before applying.
It's international.
Yeah, admissions undergrad.
It is international. That's what's probably what I've noticed on a couple things because it also one of the questions for it says do international, like does it cost to have my international transfer evaluated? No, it doesn't cost, but admission, you have to have it translated.
Yeah.
And that does cost some students.
How can you tell if it's international?
Because of the other questions that are coming up in that same portal. So.
Could we change it to say what is the minimum GPA required for international admission?
Yes.
Probably could. And on those, I think Stephanie Amplin, she told me to just save
Change
it.
it.
Yeah.
Just change it and
Yeah,
save
just
it.
change it and save it. She said she trusts
You want
us
to do that,
it.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I'll go do that.
Okay.
But that's one thing that I have a couple, like, just to talk to them about is, I'm not gonna change all of their stuff, but how do you want it? Because I don't know if Vince's office, do you know if they have to have them translated? I think that they do. Because I don't think that they read the other languages, but the thing is, that it's a cost to get that, but there needs to be a question on there probably, or address it in that it may not cost to get it evaluated, but it does cost to get it translated and certified.
See, and there's nothing in here about those GPAs.
See,
We need an
I don't
article.
know, is that, would that be more
What
of an
GPAs?
internal? The transfer program?
Yes, there is. There is an article about transfer students and what it takes. I have it.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be transfer students. I mean, that's just minimum GPA to be admitted to a college, period. Isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Maybe get any freshmen and stuff.
But, yeah, I mean, there's a transfer one, but there's,
What do you mean? Do you mean for international or?
Okay, how's it going? Has everybody been able to find these? Are you having issues with certain keywords, anything like that?
no article that says.
No problem?
So we just need to take that matrix. Right?
Okay,
But
okay, we had a really good question. So they were, I got asked on the processing time, for example, for international, the 7 to 10 business days. That only applies to once we receive something in office. Does that make sense? Once we physically receive something, that processing time starts. That is true for all admissions offices. So just because you requested it, doesn't necessarily mean we have it physically. And that doesn't necessarily mean your processing time has started. Especially on transcripts, especially international, things like that. You've got to keep in mind, we have to have received it in order for that processing time to start.
But I need
So a lot of times we get questions on, oh, I requested this transcript 7 days ago. You said 5 to 7 business days. Yes, but if you send it by mail, how much time is it still in the mail? You know, do we have it physically? If we have it physically, okay, yeah. We physically have it now. That processing time has started. You should be hearing from us within a week. But it has to physically be here first. Does that make sense? And again, that is true for all offices. Are there any other questions about this search? Any issues with these KB articles? Anything like that?
I just wanted confirmation with the 7 to 10 days. It's 7 to 10 days and not days.
We, in our office, always say business days. Do you know?
In most cases, it's
Yeah, it's usually
general
business
terms.
days.
Yeah, it's
I mean, the issue,
I can't find it.
somebody might not see business days, they can say it verbatim.
Is it
I
in
think it needs
the
to
KB that way?
That's international.
It's in the.
I think we need to be.
It says business in the KB.
No,
No, it just says days. Okay.
I think we need to be universal on that.
Yeah.
So
We talked about this, but I don't know that any decision's been made, but it's not consistent throughout the KB. Some say
Exactly.
48, business hours. Well, 48 business hours is like 6 working days.
Yeah, we talked about. I
Nothing can be
remember
that
having
long.
that discussion.
So we need to make it consistent. If it's, whatever, then, if
Because,
it's 24
yeah.
hours, 48 hours, whatever it is, but.
because we could technically say 7 to 10 business days, or 7 to 10 days, and that would be almost the same as 5 to 7 business days. So, yeah, we'll definitely try and make that more universal so that if it is business days, you can see it as. And I think these guys will work on making that clear and making sure that if maybe they're not putting in business, you understand it more business days. But I would hope that we can say business days or business hours, things like that. So you guys are very clear. So that students can all. But any other questions? Okay. So, pretty much the only thing I didn't really cover is intensive English students, just because they kind of have a special process that they go through. Really, it's all laid out on the website. Students should be able to find all that information themselves, but really, those students are students who want to come, who are coming and just not quite there when it comes to speaking English. So we are willing to work with those students. That's why we have the intensive English program. So after that, we're really done with international. Does anybody have any questions on international undergraduate students?
I think it needs to be searched.
Yes.
For the extensive English program,
Uh-huh.
that one was very
I want to say yes, but I feel like it may not be. Do you know, Patricia? Or do you guys know? Is
They
intensive
have made
English?
exceptions for
Yeah.
domestic students before.
Because I know that, there is, of course, some families that are like Spanish. First language could be Spanish, and their Spanish is horrible. I mean, their English is horrible.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering just in case I didn't have some.
And we will,
Yeah, I think maybe the general normal statement would probably be to say yes, but I would say that they also take exceptions. And so if that is an issue and they are interested and they want to do that program, that they could definitely, talk to the International Education Office and see if they're willing to work with the student.
because isn't it true that some, if they're under refugee status, then they're treated like residents?
Yeah, they're under the international.
So I
Or the
talked to
undergraduate, I mean.
students that were technically domestic residents into intensive English, but it's by exception. But you need to verify that.
Yeah. Do you mind writing that down? And we'll come back to that. What I'll do is I'll contact the director and I'll verify that really quick before we are completely done. So, parking lot it. We'll parking lot it. There you go. So, all right. Any other questions? Okay.
Samantha, did you have your hand up? You're good, okay.
Okay.
Oh, one has a question.
Okay.
How do we notify if they were?
International students should receive a letter for sure I don't know that that office is sending out email communications on being admitted. I know they do send out, obviously, the email on saying that we received the application.
They send out an email.
They do? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Pretty
thought.
much all email.
I was gonna say, they usually do. So yes, they should get an email and a letter letting them know that they were
Is
admitted.
that for all admissions then, or do it separate?
That would be for international. I know the undergrad domestic also sends out letters and emails letting you know you're admitted. Graduate,
Sorry.
whole different ballgame. I would say they don't do emails. I would say they do more.
Yeah, that would be great too. We'll ask Vince too. We have a parking lot.
Lisa, if you need something, I have a direct extension. I can get it.
Oh, it's okay. I think we can park in because it's
Okay.
10:30. He's probably still in that meeting.
Yeah. All right, so we will parking lot that question on the intensive English, and we'll move on to the grad school, as long as there's no other questions. So again, important to remember about the grad school, that does include domestic and international graduate students. So basically, if they say they're interested in grad school, they're under grad school no matter if they're international or domestic. The only thing that is different is the application fee. So. All right. So, moving on to the next slide. Well, unfortunately, it's hard to tell you guys the requirements for grad school because it's so much varied on the program. But pretty much, this is kind of a what you need to submit kind of in a blanket. I mean, obviously, you have to do an application fee. Then we need official transcripts. And that's kind of, again, all official transcripts. And then basically, that's pretty much it. The degree certification is kind of a separate thing. I'm trying to remember what Denise said. I don't remember if she was saying that they could do degree certification or if they don't. I don't remember what that degree certification is. Degree certification? Yeah. Yeah. That's not what I remember. I'll have to come back to that degree certification, get clarification on it. I remember I was told what exactly they're talking about there, but now I've got it mixed up with either what they were talking about or not talking about. So degree certification, I will parking lot and come back to. But pretty much after these kind of basic things, it is again by department. So for example, some of the additional materials they have to require or that they have to submit include a department program application on top of the regular graduate application, the test scores, GRE, GMAT, also, statement of purpose, letters of intent, letters of recommendation, things like that. The amount of those, whether they want, a faculty recommendation or if they want, a professional recommendation, things like that, it very much depends on the program. And they lay that all out at that website, wichita.edu/grad programs. And again, when it comes to international, they do have to submit official, acceptable, TOEFL, and can never say that last one, but y'all know what I'm talking about. So those, English proficiency scores, they do have to submit those for international applicants. So that is where it's a slightly different one as well. All right. Does anybody have any questions on those? Again, I will parking lot that degree certification and come back to it once I clarify that. All right, so.
Do you want me to email her?
I can call Denise. So, basically, again, everybody's got to submit official transcripts. Non-degree may be slightly different, just depends. Again, everything you've done. We don't care. We want to see everything, even if it's awful. So making that clear to students is very important too, so that way they're not dishonest because we can dismiss them for that dishonesty. So again, same as pretty much all the other offices, they don't accept fax. They have to be, if they are electronic, they have to be through the specific transcript vendor, e-transcript vendor. They can be mailed directly from the institution to the graduate school. Issued to student transcripts are the same as I described before, sealed envelope, walked in by the student. And basically, that next to last one, the transcripts and degree certification from international institutions must be either official school issued documents or attested copies made by the appropriate school official. And they must be in English. So just as I said before, we have to have a translated version. And it has to be an official translated version. Yes.
Okay, so what happens if a student says, you know, my country is,
Oh, so they
In
get the question
turmoil.
of my country is in war. I cannot get my transcript. That it would be an escalation. Sometimes it's legit. It is totally true. And we are not trying to be mean to those students or anything like that. That is a special circumstance. That is something that would be escalated to the Director of International Education, who would make a decision on that. But sometimes they're just saying that because they don't want to go through the trouble. So we would actually have to do research and check and verify as to whether or not the student can actually not get the transcript. So those are very, very special circumstances that we do get. I wouldn't say that we get them often, but sometimes students are sincere and actually they don't know a way in order to get their transcript. But a lot of times, or not a lot of times, sometimes they are just, I don't want to get it. I don't want to go through the trouble. I don't know how. They don't want to try and figure it out. So we will do research and check and see if we can't, help the students. I don't know if there's an KB article for that. That is, I feel like that's definitely a small percentage, like a 20%.
It is not 80-20.
Yeah, it's a very small percentage that I would say we get that.
Right.
I don't
It
even
does
know.
happen, but it just does not happen often. But a lot of times it is very sincere.
Good. Hold on.
Do you have a question?
Do you offer any suggestions on where they can get their transcripts translated?
I want to say yes.
WES is one of them.
What was Nettie's question?
The question-
Is there a location that we recommend students get their transcripts translated when needed?
Oh, okay. For translation.
I don't have a good answer for that. Does anybody at this table have a good answer?
A lot of them get them translated in their home country
Oh, okay.
and just come to the U.S. with them translated.
Does that mean
But there are some,
No.
then the translation has to be certified.
And usually,
Yes.
doesn't it,
Because there are companies out there that will do that.
Yes.
No, because they can only
And it
certify
usually
a few
costs.
languages like French
Yeah.
and
Right.
German and Spanish.
So it doesn't necessarily cost for us to, see if those classes will transfer. The cost is getting it translated.
So they need to get it translated from their actual language.
Yes. Yes, and it has to be certified. So that's kind of the main thing.
Another good thing to tell them is a lot of times their embassy will be able, or consulate will be able to tell them where they can get that done.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So there are also some non-degree graduate, I would say this is not very many, but they still have to submit transcripts showing that they have credit. And basically, if they don't have a graduate degree, they have to submit all transcripts. Does that all make sense? And so there's the A and B category, and the B is slightly different in that they have to show, one is if they already have like a graduate degree, and one's if they already have a bachelor's degree or a teaching certificate license. Again, I feel like this is a very small population. So, okay. So this is kind of the timeline, and it kind of shows what affects. Again, this is very similar to what we discussed before, but it sometimes can take longer. As you can see, it takes anywhere from a few days to a few months. So it's definitely something that can be drawn out, and so it's very important for students to meet those deadlines so that they can get all this taken care of, which is why a lot of times the deadlines are so early in the year before the semester starts. So again, if the application is complete, if you've submitted all the supporting materials. If it was received right at the deadline, obviously going to take a little bit longer. If, you know, the program, so for example, some programs only accept for certain semesters. So they only accept for, let's say, fall or summer or spring. So sometimes, I mean, they have one deadline and that's it for the entire year. So it is important that students keep that in mind when they're applying and knowing if they have a rolling admissions or if it's just like a once a year type deal. Because some programs are very structured and they all have to start, for example, in the summer. They all have to start in the fall. So, and again, that does include all the supporting materials for the program as well. So if they do require letters of recommendation, letter of interest, things like that, you've got to have all that, and that affects that time for getting admitted. So, okay, well, so they do email as you're going through the process, as you're going through the various stages. It can take longer, obviously, again, around those deadlines if there's a high volume. They refer them to the one-stop website, you know, to see where they're at in that status, or contacting the graduate school office. And a lot of times the graduate school is a great place to start if you're not sure on the program or not sure who to contact in the program. They can oftentimes tell you who the best person to talk to would be. And again, it shows a list. You can go online to see a list of all the required application material, whether you're a U.S. citizen or an international student. And basically, it's kind of like, as I was answering before, they pretty much looks like just do mail when it comes to letting them know they're admitted. So students will not get an email, at least at this time, saying you've been accepted into this graduate program. So although it does look like international students will receive an email notification before their documents, because that's the quickest way to get a hold of them sometimes, especially if they're moving, in the process of moving. Any questions?
Intensive English will take permanent residents and U.S. citizens.
Oh.
They contact international programs to get into English, and if they are domestic, they have to go through admissions.
Do you want to just speak up a little bit?
Back to the intensive English, they will take permanent residents and U.S. citizens as well as international students. They contact intensive English directly to get into that program, but go through domestic admissions for admissions into the university.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for following up on that. All right,
Do we have
so
a KB article for that?
What?
for
Intensive English
Intensive
for
English.
U.S. citizens
Yes.
and permanent residents.
I think I put it on the parking lot, so I will put it now in.
okay, so I'm going to do a pop quiz, and this is going to be maybe a little bit more difficult question to answer. So I will take the short, simple version, and I will take the long version as well. So what do graduate students need to submit to apply for admissions?
Admissions application,
Does that need to be
degree certification, and affairs and program.
Yes. So there are, you know, the graduate school, and yeah, you did a very good job. You get tribes, yay. So basically, the best answer is that, you know, you've got your general, so application at the transcripts, things like that, and then you've got the specific program requirements. So, any questions on that? And so then the next question is kind of, you know, a silly question, but are transcripts required for graduate students?
Yes.
Awesome. Surprise. Yay. All right. So that wraps up the graduate side. Are there any questions about the graduate students, the graduate school, that process, anything like that? Yes.
So, I see on here it says, please visit One Stop.
Yes.
Okay, which it would basically be us in the physical group. But then it says, or call the graduate school office. So that phone number there won't ring to One Stop, or you have it?
It actually will.
It will, okay.
On our campus, in most of the departments that are being represented, if a student calls any of those numbers, it will say for such and such, press 1, 1 brings them to you.
Okay.
No matter.
So if they truly wanted somebody in the graduate school,
They can press 2.
there'll
There's
be an
options
option
for
and
it.
they won't, and then it would be okay for us to say, for that, I'm not sure, but perhaps you need to contact the graduate school office if we're not able to find the information.
Yeah, we were
Now,
also,
I thought that.
we were discussing
We
that
don't
it would
want people
just,
to choose to, though. We don't want students
Yeah.
to press 2. We don't want to inform them that pressing, because the recording is going to say,
Yeah.
if you're a student, press 1. If you're faculty, staff, or someone else, press 2. So if
Yeah.
we begin to say, okay, just press 2.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
well,
you will just
Technically, we don't
escalate.
even know what option they press, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, so we wouldn't tell them. My question is more,
No.
where it says, or call this number, does that not ring back to us? That was
It does,
more so
and
my
you
question.
would
Okay.
just say, you would just escalate the ticket and not necessarily give that student that number, because then the graduate school will call them back. Because that's kind of for the external as far as a student seeing it when they're looking at that search portal. And it'll direct them to you, and if it's a situation that they have to be, then escalate it, it's just to escalate
To
it.
them, okay, just wanted to clarify, thank you.
And then Nettie, do you have a question?
Yeah, she kind of answered my question. She
Oh,
said
okay.
we don't want to wrap them back. I was going to ask if there'll be it's like a phone tree.
Oh, like
No,
a
I'd be
direct
sure to-
line
Right,
for you
so we
to
can
transfer
see
them to?
what they're, well, like, so we can see what option means what when they call online. So they say, well, I pressed that option, that's where I meant to go, but it brought me here, so what option am I supposed to press?
We've talked about it, but I don't know that there's been an official decision, or what.
Now, I understood, maybe I'm not understanding your question, but it was my understanding that when they come to you, you're going to know what number they called, right? So you're going to know if they called the registrar's office, so that, it doesn't matter what option they push.
Stephanie
Again,
saying shake in her
See
head.
that?
Well, we won't know unless we get the screen pop. Now, if the IVR is directing the screen pop to pop up registrar or admissions or financial
I
aid,
believe that it is.
then we'll know that that's the option they selected. But usually, we don't really know what they're
What number
doing
they
in the
originally
IVR unless we're specifically shown, like the tree, or they say that if they call and they're asking for this, tell them to call back and press option 1, and then option 1, and then option 2.
What do you mean?
So, yeah, other than that,
They just keep
we're gonna
going.
have to go by the screen pop that tells them,
That's good to know.
yeah.
I think the other thing
I'm
that
gonna
is
put
not
it on
clear
our
to me.
question list.
Yeah, the other thing that's not clear is where they're supposed to be transferring people, or if they're gonna be transferred. I have the same question. We didn't necessarily create all these slides. A lot
Right.
of them were started for us and then
Right.
we edited.
Yeah.
So when it said the, registrar's office phone number is this, it's like, well, who's that for? That's the number the students are gonna call, which is gonna go
Go
to you
to
all.
us,
So to
yeah.
give that number to you all doesn't really help you if
Right.
you're gonna be transferring calls back to us. So I'm still unclear on
Shannon is
that.
coming up with a list.
Yes,
of-
that
of
list is being
direct-
created currently for them, for you guys, to say this is, and I'm putting it in our questions for, in general, for our parking lot questions, if the IVR will create the screen pop for them. I
Thank
think
you.
that it
Sorry.
will, but I don't wanna say 100%.
So, because normally if they request to speak to like another person or someone particular, we would just escalate it to have
Right.
someone look into it and call
Right.
back, right?
Yes.
All right, did we get that answered? Okay. All right, so now we're gonna get into some general